What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. Today it's the Game Week 24 preview. Obviously a bit of a big double game week, not quite as big as the one we're expecting in 24, but lots of things to think about. People still looking at wildcards, what's going on with the fixtures, bench boosting, lots and lots of questions. So I'm going to go through a few key points for the week so far and then do a bit of a Q&A at the end. So there's lots to go through. Please do hit a like on the video if you're enjoying it. The support recently has been great, as it has been all season, to be fair. We're really doing well on this channel, so thank you very much for all your continued support. Please do keep hitting that like button, and obviously hit subscribe if you're enjoying the content. You haven't already, it'll take you 2 seconds to do that, and it really helps me out. We're just past 140k. Let's get to 150k now by the end of the season. Otherwise, with all that out of the way, let's jump into it. So we should probably start off, as we are probably going to do for the next few weeks, given how important double game weeks are, and obviously the blank game weeks as well, looking at Ben's spreadsheet. So I've spoken about this a few times already. If you're not already following on Ben on Twitter, make sure you do. He updates this spreadsheet as you go, and obviously when we start to see FA Cup matches complete, that means we'll start to find out who's blanking in Game Week 29. Then we get a good idea of who's going to double in Game Week 26. Now, I will say this spreadsheet's probably got a little bit more complicated because obviously the Leeds versus Southampton game went into 25. I don't think anyone was really expecting that, and obviously the Burnley game got put into 24 as well. No one was really expecting that. So now he's got a lot of possible double game week chances. I'm not going to focus too much on them because obviously it's just possible. The chance is very low. Some of that chance is based off just odds of certain matches being won or lost by certain teams, right? And I don't want to get into it too much. The interesting thing for me is the very likely, right? The Brown for Game Week 26. So likely to see a double game week for Man City. We've been saying that for a while. One for Aston Villa, Leeds, plus one of Spurs, Everton, Sheffield United. Obviously, if it's Sheffield United or Everton, that's really good for Aston Villa. Spurs likely to get one. Man United now as well. So basically, with the FA Cup match last night, because Man United won, that means they'll now almost certainly double in Game Week 26, and they'll play Chelsea away and Palace away. So it's not the ideal double game week fixture, but for those of you with Fernandes, maybe a Man United defender, that's worth considering because they'll now probably have a double in 26, and they might be worth keeping where perhaps you were thinking of getting rid before. And because West Ham lost, that now puts their fixture as green in Game Week 29, so they'll definitely play Arsenal in Game Week 29, obviously apart from kind of weather postponements or COVID postponements or anything like that. And because of that, obviously Arsenal will play West Ham away in Game Week 29. So we already have two guaranteed fixtures for 29, Fulham versus Leeds and West Ham versus Arsenal. So for those of you that were keeping the free hit for that, there's already a few teams that we want to target, right? The talk before was kind of like that free hit in 29 is going to be no good. There's going to be no fixtures, no players. Well, triple West Ham, triple Arsenal, triple Leeds, they're all potential options, and there's probably still a couple more fixtures to go in that week as well. Otherwise, we are still waiting for all the FA Cup matches to finish. Just the way FPL is at the moment, right? It's been chaotic, and even this week when we've got a full week to talk about stuff, we're still waiting to the end of the week for full info, and I just can't leave all the videos to the end of the week. So once all the fixtures are in, I'll start thinking more about wildcards and stuff like that and try and get a video up. But this is still important info, right? There is now some more almost confirmed double game weeks in 26, not actually confirmed, but pretty much going to be, and also some blanks in 29. So keep an eye on this. Obviously, the Everton versus Spurs match in particular is important because if Everton win that, there is a chance they will get a double game week of Southampton plus Villa or West Brom in 26, and that will be quite big for anyone that hasn't got a wild card, because getting Calvert-Lewin in now when he's got Liverpool next and then potentially no double game week is not as nice as if he's got double game week, Liverpool. Wow, another good double game week as well. So that's going to be something to keep an eye on. But I'll keep talking through this as Ben keeps updating it as we get more info about the fixtures and stuff. And like I said, if you're not already following Ben, go and do it right now on Twitter. Extremely useful person to follow. And also, this spreadsheet is just amazing. I got asked this question loads this week, right? How many double game week players is enough, right? And you get asked this every single double game week, right? And I always try and think of it of who will be the most popular picks. Do I have them covered, or do I have players that are just as good? And if I've got that many, anything after that is a bonus, right? But there's lots of things to think about when you talk about how many is enough. So let's talk about the popular picks first. So for me, the average double game weekers will probably be 5, right? Calvert-Lewin from Everton, okay? Yes, of course, you could have James Rodriguez, you could have Decore, Pickford if he's fit, etc., Luca Dean, but most people are going to have Calvert-Lewin. The rest are probably going to be differentials, right? I think we can all probably agree that. Man City, nearly every FPL manager that's active right now will have 3 Man City players, not just because they've been great, and they're still going to carry on being great, and they've probably got more double game weeks to come, but because it's just so risky to go without 3, right? Now, in terms of who the players are, it's a little bit different. I've got João Cancelo, John Stones, and Gundogan, but you could have Sterling in there, you could have double attack, you could have double defence that includes Diaz, some people are on triple defence, etc. People are going to have 3 Man City defenders, so that's 4 players straight away. And then most people, I think, are going to have 1 Burnley defender. Not everybody, but a lot of people will have 1 defender, whether that's, and I include goalkeepers in that, so whether it's Nick Pope, Ben Mee, Tarkowski, Peters, or Loughton, right? Or maybe even Charlie Taylor if he's back fit. Most people are going to have 1. So I think there's 5 main, you can't even see my hand there because of the green screen, 5 main double game week players. And like I said, you can sprinkle other players in there, right? James Rodriguez, Luca Dean. For Man City, people could be punting on Foden, Mahrez, etc. But obviously it's still Triple City. Fulham, Areola maybe, Lookman, etc. But they're not going to be highly owned players, right? So for me, that kind of tells me, I've got to put my hand in the right place. That kind of tells me that 5 is enough, right? And if you've got more than that, then you have to start asking yourself some more questions, right? First of all, who am I having to take out to get that player, okay? So for my team, for example, I'm benching Wan-Bissaka, great fixture already. I'm playing Bruno Fernandes. Most people will have him against West Brom. Now, this is just an extreme example, but if you had to take any of them out to get a double game week player, okay, you might have a free transfer, but what does that transfer cost you down the line, right? And the biggest thing I think I would say to people is think of every transfer as costing 4 points, right? Even if it's not literally costing you 4 points that week, it could do down the line, right? So it's all well and good. I could say, right, I'm bringing Calvert-Lewin in for free. I've got 1 more transfer. Let's bring in a second Burnley defender. So for game week 24, I'm looking good. But going forward, I've got no wild card. Suddenly, I've got 2 Burnley defenders who might not play twice in 26, right? They're out of the FA Cup, so I don't even think they can now. Even if they could, would I even want 2 Burnley defenders? Probably not. So I'm kind of stuck with them. They don't have good fixtures going forward. At what point do I need to use a transfer to get rid of that Burnley defender? At this point, I bought in Ben Mee for free last week and rolled the other transfer. I still think in a few weeks I'm going to have to use a transfer to get rid of him. So if I bring in a second one, what does that then cost me, right? These are the things you have to think about. It's not just I've got a free transfer. That transfer still costs 4 points. Even if it doesn't literally cost you, it's worth 4 points. That's probably a better way to put it. It doesn't cost you 4 points. It's worth 4 points. So if you bring in a second Burnley defender, does that then cost you a hit to get Dallas in 25? Right? Because if you bring in a Burnley defender this week, yes, they got 2 fixtures, but only 1 next week, right? Whereas if you had Dallas, for example, he's got 1 this week, 2 next week. So is that transfer better off being saved? Now, you could obviously say Burnley defenders have got better fixtures. They got West Brom. I get that. But even you've got to look further than that, right? It's the same with bringing in extra Everton players. Like if I bought Luca Dean in, if I had the money to do that, well, I've added another 6.1 million defender to my team. I've already got 2 Man City defenders, and I've got a couple of other defenders I can play as well. So at what point do I have to play Luca Dean every week? What point do I want to do that? When will I want the money that he is costing me into other places in my team? I've already got money spread out. And at what point soon am I going to want to transfer him back out again? Arguably, if he's got a good 26 fixture, then that obviously makes him a better player. But you have to kind of plan ahead. It's not just about this week. There's more game weeks to come. It's a little bit different if you've got a wild card that you're going to play soon. Like if you're going to play a wild card in 25 or 26, completely different because you don't have to keep these players. And therefore, maybe you can go for a few more. But when you start talking about hits, then it gets even trickier, right? So again, let's go for the defender, right, route. I've seen people talking about bringing in hits, right, for Burnley defenders. And you can talk about whether they can score goals, they can get save points, they can get bonus. But let's just keep it simple. Let's say they get 6 points in each game week, right, just for the clean sheet. They don't get anything on top of that for whatever reason. Well, if you take 4 points off, then straight away that's just the appearance points. So the player you've taken out was probably going to get those 2 points anyway. So that's kind of null and void. Then obviously you're hoping for the other fixture that they do better. But what if they don't get 2 clean sheets? So it gets tricky. It's not me trying to say you shouldn't do it, but you have to think strongly. So potentially that hit could not only not work out this week, but it could then cost you another transfer later. So you've really got to think strongly about your future transfers. Use something like the free planner on livefpl.net. Just to see at what point you're probably going to want to either bench that player quite a lot or take them out. And it could take you transfers down the line. So for me, most people are going to have 5. Triple City, 1 Dominic Calvert-Lewin and 1 defender from Burnley. There will be people with more than that. There's nothing wrong with having more than that. It's about how you're going to deal with that in later game weeks and whether that transfer you're using now could be better spent later on, basically. Okay, so let's talk about Antonio and West Ham. I'd say Antonio is quite highly owned through kind of active managers. Obviously, he's been doing really well, had really good fixtures as well. So it was worth having, even if he did blank against Fulham in the last game. Now, in that game, he did come off. Now, to me, it looked like he kind of, before he pulled up, he stopped himself from having to pull up, but he did kind of signal to say he had to come off. So that's not a good sign, right? Especially for a player that is constantly having hamstring problems or just general injury problems all the time, it feels like, right? It's very rare that he'll get a good run in the team. Now, he was fully out of the squad for the Man United FA Cup game. He wasn't even on the bench. Moyes has kind of said that they're happy with the amount of minutes they've got out of him, right? They're surprised by the amount of games that he's played, but they have to be careful with him, right? So, ex-West Ham employee on Twitter, if you're not following him, he's very much in the know when it comes to West Ham, right? There's a lot of people on Twitter that post rubbish about team news and they just don't have a clue, or they're just making it up. He is not one of them, right? So someone tweeted him, what's all this rubbish on Antonio being fatigued? Tell the truth. I'm a bit of an aggressive tweet, by the way. His left hamstring is pulled, end of. So obviously he's joking around saying new in the know is born, but he says, to be precise, he has tight hamstrings. So it doesn't say that he's pulled one, which is probably better, right? But yes, he's a doubt for Sheffield United. So are they going to risk him in that Sheffield United game? What I will say, against Man United, they weren't great. There was glimpses of having a few chances here or there, but very minimal. And I think without Antonio in that team, Yarmolenko cannot do the same job as Antonio. Like, Antonio can do it all, realistically, as a forward. He's not just one-dimensional. He's not just a player in there to hold it up or just make runs in behind. He can do it all. So missing him is big. Man United played well, don't get me wrong, and Sheffield United is not the same kind of game, but they could now rest him for that with what is coming up is going to be a difficult fixture schedule. So we're going to have to wait and see what Moyes says. Now, the reason I'm talking about it is not because I have the info about whether he's definitely out or not, but people are going to be thinking about it. And for me, he's not going to double in 26. He has Spurs at home, Man City away, and Man United away in the next 5 fixtures. That is not a player I'd want to keep, right? I love Antonio. His stats are really good. Of course, he could get points in these fixtures if he plays in them. But you have to think that his kind of points volume or the points total that he's going to get is going to be diminished. The one fixture, even against Sheffield United, by the way, is not even that great a fixture. They've been playing quite well. And I don't see West Ham scoring a huge amount of goals in that fixture. I could be wrong, but I just don't see it whether Antonio plays or not. Leeds at home is a good fixture, and I think that's something where he would get he could get multiple returns in it, like he could get a couple of returns, and you'd be happy to have him. But I don't think that one fixture with everything going on is probably worth keeping him. So if you were considering taking him out to someone like Calvert-Lewin, especially if Everton end up winning tonight, or whatever happens, they have a double in 26, then Calvert-Lewin just looks like a better option for the short term. It's not to say that you can't ever bring Antonio back in, but it's just all these things, sometimes things just all come together at once. I mean, that it's probably telling you to do it. So Sheffield United at home, is it a great fixture? I've put it as green, but arguably it's not green anymore from an attacking sense. Potentially he's going to be rested anyway. Even if he's not, how many minutes will they get out of him? And the fixtures are really tough. So I think Antonio is not a must-sell this week, but I think if you are edging on caution with him, you can probably just... This will probably tip you over the edge to make the transfer. In terms of other West Ham players, look, Souček, I still think he's a good bench option. I personally just don't want to be playing him week in, week out. I think he has got a couple of really good goals. He does have decent threat, and he does play 90 minutes, which is massive. But over these next 5, I wouldn't be too worried. Again, you could always bring him back later on. There's better options out there. Rafinha, for example, is around the same price. He doubles in 25. Ogbonna also went off injured against Man United. I don't know if he's going to make the next game. He rolled his ankle or kind of twisted his ankle. I doubt he's going to make the next game. We'll have to wait and see. I don't think it necessarily makes West Ham defence avoidable. Like, if I had so far and I was planning on playing him, I definitely would still play him against Sheffield United. I know they've been scoring a few goals recently, but West Ham are a decent defensive team with or without Ogbonna, I would say. So I wouldn't be too worried. But again, obviously, the same thing applies to the attackers. The fixtures coming up are not great, and therefore, with no double and no good fixtures outside of Leeds and maybe Sheffield United, Sofao and co, maybe even Cresswell, etc., Dawson, if you're still holding him, they're probably dispensable now, right? It doesn't mean you have to sell them again. They could just be in your squad. Like, for me, I've looked at some transfer plans where Sofao just stays on my bench just because I've got other transfers to make, and maybe I just leave him for later on in the season. But I think if you've got better moves to make, Dallas, for example, for the double in 25, or whatever future plan it might be, is probably not the worst time to get rid of them. But Antonio looks to be a risk for this weekend. So if that was kind of you're thinking about whether to get rid of him or not, maybe you can just get rid of him now. I've got to be honest, I don't even know if we talked about bench boosting last week. We may have done, right? It keeps coming up because people have such good squads right now. Constant questions about who to bench. People are worried that they benched the wrong player. Should I bench boost? Should I save it for the wild card? Should I save it for a double game week, right? Those questions keep on coming in. So even if we did cover it last week, I'll cover it this week and probably not try and keep touching on it, at least not having its own section like this, right? Now, the image of the 3 players is my bench this week. Now, that is a genuine bench, right? I feel that I've got 11 better players than all those ones on screen. By the time I get to Saturday, right, to the deadline, I might have swapped some around, right? I'm not saying 100% this is set, but I think this is a genuine bench. So first of all, when you're considering bench boost, put the genuine players on your bench, right? Don't put 3 Man City players on there because they got a double game week and your bench boost will look great. If you're serious about making the right decision, put the realistic players on, right? So, for example, I've got Grealish playing. I would have Calvert-Lewin potentially, Antonio, Bamford, right? You could argue whether Son is better option than Bamford, and maybe I swap that. But Wan-Bissaka and Sofao are competing with Ben Mee, double game week, and they're competing with Stones and Cancelo, both with double game week. So they are genuine bench options. If I had this bench this week, and if I had my bench boost, the only thing I'd be slightly concerned about is Son playing against Man City. It's a tough game. Will he get any points? But I would probably bench boost that team, right? Or bench boost that bench, I should say. I don't have a problem. I've done it the last 2 seasons, bench boosting single game week players. It can go right, it can go wrong. We saw lots of people bench boost 3 Leeds players against Brighton. It really didn't go well at all. I bench boosted a few single game week players and it was like 26 points, right? I think I had Martinez with a double, which helped out quite a bit. But it was the game that wasn't against City where he got his clean sheet. It was the one against Newcastle, I think. So you can bench boost with single game week players. There's a few questions you need to ask yourself, right? There, again, like I feel like some of the questions that are coming in right now are kind of like, give us a blanket answer to this question. There isn't one. You have to look at your own squads and make the decisions around on your teams, your transfer thoughts, right? I can't cover every person's teams, every person's chips that are left and kind of come up with a strategy for every different person, right? It's impossible. It's not what these videos are about either. So a few things. One, how good is your bench? Obvious question, right? If it's a bench like this, maybe you look at bench boosting. When are you wildcarding is really important. I think there's 2 ways you can go about it. You can wildcard either in game week 24 or 25 and then bench boost in 26 with double game week players, or you can bench boost now and then wildcard in, and when I say now, I mean 24 or 25, and then you can you can wildcard in 25 or 26 and not worry about your bench. Now I say that because I am someone with a squad right now where the money is spread quite thin, which hasn't really affected me too much because we haven't had to worry about De Bruyne or Kane. And obviously Gundogan's been so good that I've had a lot of money to spare. And I could even do Salah to Rafinha, right? And that would give me extra money. So I haven't had to worry about that. But at some point I'm going to have to strip that money out of the bench and put it in my first 11. We're not going to go the whole season with the likes of Kane, De Bruyne, Salah, etc. not being options where we might want all of them or a couple of them. We don't have the budget to do it. So that's kind of the pros and cons. If you bench boost now, you can wildcard into the perfect 11. I say perfect because obviously that's objective or subjective, right? Your perfect 11 might not be the same as mine for game week 26, and then just worry about your bench. Not worry about your bench going forward. Or you could wildcard in 26 with a bench that's good enough for 29. And again, you've got your bench boost out of the way, so you're not worried about when you use that. Do you have your free hit is a big question, because if you do, and you have your wildcard and you have your bench boost, then wildcarding into a 26 bench boost, to me, still makes sense, because you can probably get, depending on how the fixtures fall, that's something you're going to have to look at when the FA Cup games are done, you might be able to get kind of upwards of 12, 13, 14, even 15 double game week players. And it doesn't matter about game week 29, because you can just free hit. So yes, you will have a bit of a stacked bench, and that might hurt you slightly when it comes to like getting money off the bench, but you don't have to worry about game week 29. So that's a little bit different. If I didn't have my free hit, right, and I was having to wildcard soon, I would strongly look at bench boosting in 24 or 25 if I had the team to do it. I wouldn't necessarily build towards that. Like, I wouldn't necessarily make transfers just to have a good bench. But if I had it already, I'd strongly consider doing it. You can wildcard and then not have to worry about your bench going forward because you've got cheap players on there. Obviously, If Brighton, for example, win their game against Leicester and they double, not only do they have a great double in 26, they're really cheap as well. And suddenly you can start building a strong bench with really good double game week options. If you could get Dunk, for example, and one other defender like Webster, who've got, I think it would be West Brom and Newcastle if they double in 26, they're really cheap, really, really good bench boost options, arguably much better than most people's single game week benches. So, again, I keep saying this, right? I know it's boring to hear. You're going to have to wait until the FA Cup fixtures are done to get an idea of when teams are going to double and then work it out from there. For me, the biggest thing is a single game week. I put single game week double. I meant single game week bench boost is absolutely fine. It's better to bench boost a single game week and not have the rest of your season, or at least the next kind of 4 to 5 weeks, derail because you've either built towards a bench boost and you've not got any transfers, or you're having to transfer the bench players off and you're having to use transfers for that. It's better to just bench boost a single game. We can not be worried about getting doublers in, depending on what chips you got, right? If you've got your free hit, it's a bit different. If you don't, I would consider doing it now, but only if you've got a good bench. If you haven't, just wait till your wild card, and you probably bench boost in 26, which is what a lot of people are going to do, but it is not the only option. Okay, so here is some other questions that came up quite a bit, which I didn't want to put into their own kind of separate section because they weren't necessarily big enough, but we'll talk about them. The image is the fixtures for Game Week 24. Without the double game week fixtures at the bottom. I've talked about the double game week quite a bit at this point, both in this video and also in the couple of videos already this week. So I did a My Game Week 24 watch list and a Game Week 24 best players video. So if you want to check them out after you've watched this one, make sure you do that. But one of the questions that came up was the single game week players to target. So these are the single game week games, basically. The key one is obviously West Brom versus Man United. Now, Man United played in the FA Cup, but they rested Fernandes and they rested Cavani. Both those players did have to come on. But they didn't play the whole game. Like the players like Rashford played the whole game, all 120 minutes. So did Martial, I believe, as well. So they could be quite knackered at this point. For what it's worth, I think Rashford will start again for anyone that's got him that's worried. But would I be put off bringing him in this week? I might be, unless I was wildcarding him out in 25 or 26. I still think he's potentially worth a punt then. But Cavani in particular, if you've got a spare forward slot, you've got a spare forward slot for a punt. Bearing in mind that Man United will probably double in 26 as well, he looks a good shout. My only worry is, I don't think it's even a case that he's sharing minutes with Martial right now. I think it's just that he has to have some time off, right? He's not young anymore, so he probably can't play 2 or 3 games in a week, or at least 3 games in a week, which sometimes happens. So I actually think he's possibly the number one striker at Man United right now, and it's Martial that's either going to have to fight for a few minutes when he can get them, or he's going to have to play on the left and maybe Rashford on the right. But Greenwood's been playing on the right quite a bit as well. But as a single game week punt, I really like Cavani. In terms of, are we worrying about double game weekers too much? Should we be targeting single game weekers? At the end of the day, most people have already got Fernandes. So you're worried about 1 or 2 other Man United players. I'd almost certainly go for the double game weekers. Like, one of the questions is, should we bench big hitters for double game week players? I try and think of it of how, like, obviously you've got to give your own thoughts, eye test, how you think the games are going to go. But if you think how a model would do it, like, so if you logged into one of the sites that's got a model, right, like Rate My Team on Fantasy Football Scout, obviously that gives you an average points it thinks a player is going to get for any given game week. Now, a defender, for example, will never be 6, right? They can't say that this player is going to get 6 points every week, because it just doesn't happen. But it might be like 2 to 3 if it's a poor fixture, maybe upwards of 4 if it's a good fixture. Now, Son versus Man City is probably going to be like a 4 or 5, if that, because obviously it's such a tough fixture. Spurs attacking-wise, outside of Kane and Son, haven't actually been that good, but obviously those two are really good players. So therefore, this week, he would probably be like a 4, maybe a 3 to 4. So if you've got a Burnley player with 2 really good fixtures, they're probably a 4 for each fixture. That's 8 points straight away. I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but the difference between kind of 3 to 4 points in a single game is pretty big, because you spread that over a whole season, it's like 100 points plus. I hope I haven't lost anyone there. That's just kind of the logic that I would think about. So basically, long and the short of it, I've got Ben Mee and I've got Son. I'm 100% benching Son. There's no question about it. Ben Mee's got a good chance of 2 clean sheets. He's got double the games. Bare minimum I would expect is 4 points, right? So I think he could beat Son. So yes, I would bench big hitters, depending on who they are and what fixture they've got. A lot of people are going to have to bench Son this week. Look, could it punish you? Absolutely. Man City are defending so well right now. I don't think they're going to cause. I don't think they're going to be caused big problems by Spurs. But you just don't know how the game's going to go. I don't think there's a problem in benching double game week players necessarily, but I would never want to do that, right? What I probably would say is I wouldn't actively go and buy double game week players if I had really good single game week players. So I won't actively look to bench Wan-Bissaka, even though I'm probably going to. I wouldn't actively go and buy a double game week player just to bench Wan-Bissaka. And lastly, I'll just quickly touch on this because I talked about best double game week 24 players. Swapping Man City defenders to midfielders. I don't. If you're doing it on a wild card, fine. I think if you're using transfers to swap defenders to midfielders, especially if it's for a hit, if it's not a long-term move, I wouldn't do it. If you now genuinely think Sterling, for example, is what a lot of people are doing, is the best option at Man City, and I need him for the next 4 or 5 weeks, then fair enough. But taking out an extremely good defender and an extremely good defence, who has double game weeks to come, using those transfers when maybe they could be better spent elsewhere, I'm not sure I would do it. If I was on a wild card, I would definitely strongly consider doing it because it's a big differential in a week or two where I don't see a huge amount of differential options when everyone's kind of got the same players. So I think Sterling captain on a wild card is decent. I'm not sure I'd spend too many transfers to do it outside of that. There we go. That is it for this one. Thank you very much for watching. Hopefully it's been useful and you've enjoyed it. If you have, please do give it a like and hit that subscribe button. There's still like 50% of people that are watching these videos not subscribed. If you're enjoying the content, please make sure you do. Trying to hit 150k now after going past 140k. There's still quite a few videos to come this week as well. I still think I've got to get in team selection, captaincy, and I'm going to try and fit in a wildcard video as well as a deadline stream on Saturday. So there is loads more stuff to come. And lastly, if you've not already signed up to Patreon, there is a link in the description below. Loads of perks and benefits over there if you want to support me and the channel even further. And I have to go through the Legends wall because not only is there a bunch of Legends already signed up, but there's also a load of people that have signed up since the last time I did the shout outs as well. So big thank you to Rick D, UNT, Matt J, Dean M, Rodri L, John M, Henrik, and Michael IR, who have all signed up since the last video. Big thank you to you, and if you want to do that as well, link in the description. I will be back tomorrow with yet more videos about FPL, so hopefully you've enjoyed this one. There's more to come, like I said, for Game Week 24, and we'll have more FA Cup news as well, so hopefully that'll help us sway our decisions one way or another. So if you enjoyed it, give it a like, hit subscribe, check out Patreon, and I'll catch you again soon.